Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. Hey, I'm your host, and oh my goodness, it's episode 8. I'm almost through my first season of 10 episodes. You know, there's a lot of leadership podcasts out there that showcase the highlight reels. You know, the ones where they show the rewards, the milestones, the standing O's. But here, hey, let's dive into the messy middle. Let's talk about where real growth happens. You know, the areas where nobody really wants to talk about. Each episode, I sit down with leaders who aren't afraid to pull back the curtain on their journey. We explore self-doubt battled and the resilience that they took to go ahead and overcome it. So, hey, grab your favorite drink, get comfortable. Let's jump into today's honest conversation about what leadership looks like with an Olympic champion, gold medalist, 2-time silver in the women's gymnastics, Carly Patterson. Carly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Stan.
Now, I don't know if the listeners can help, but we're also welcoming Bogart. Is it Bogart?
Yep, Bogart's still going strong.
So Bogart is the dog who, the UPS man just came to the door. And as you said, he's blind and deaf, but he can definitely hear the UPS.
He really wants to be on the podcast with us, I guess.
Well, you know what? Why not? You know what? He's probably got a messy middle too. He's blind and deaf, so you know what? He had some struggles too. So maybe it's just as well that we hear his. But
for sure.
I think we really want to hear yours. It's not every day we get the opportunity to talk to an Olympian, somebody who is on the biggest stage in the world. And you not only got a gold in the 2004 Olympics as a gymnast in the all-around, you also got a silver from the team perspective and also a silver from the beam. And it's funny because the beam was my specialty. That's what I do the best. You couldn't find a beam. You couldn't find a platform wide enough to where I could fail. I still cannot get over the beam. You've got all these things, but I think the most important award I think that you got that I'm like most just coveting is you're on a Wheaties box. You were on the Wheaties box? Seriously?
I should have put it right here in the background.
What was that? What's that like? How did so did that come out in like 2005, 2006? When were you on the Wheaties box?
Actually, I think it was revealed right when we were still in Athens. So like right after I won, everything was kind of wrapping up for gymnastics and got to reveal that still while I was there in Athens. And that was pretty special. That's one of my most just coolest moments because I felt like at that point, like you made it if you're on a Wheaties box. And so to be one of those athletes chosen for that was pretty cool.
Well, if you've never met Carly, and maybe you haven't, but I was fortunate to meet you, Carly, about 6 months ago. I was the warm-up act for you coming on stage and kind of, doing your keynote, which you're so good at. And so, we got a chance to meet each other that day. And just so happened that we met at the airport again. I was behind you in the TSA line. I said, oh my God,
following me.
She's going to think I'm stalking her. This is horrible. And fortunately, as you are, you're the nicest person I think I've ever met. You were like, no, it's so cool. And we talked and we had a good time. And so, we end up here. We can talk about your story. The thing about your story, Carly, that I got from that day of listening to you is that, you didn't just end up on the podium there at the Olympics. I mean, with no blemishes, with no heartache and with no challenges. I mean, your story started pretty early. So please, people want to hear from you, not from me. Where do you want to take us? How do you want to talk about your journey, my friend?
Well, I got started at the age of 6, and something I remember us talking about at that airport that day was just the fact that at that gymnastics competition or that gymnastics meet birthday party, it was my cousin's birthday party actually, and the coach came over to me that day and asked me where I took gymnastics. I guess saw me doing some flips and some, things that looked like I must have taken gymnastics on the sidelines. And he was like, where do you take gymnastics? And, 6-year-old Carly was like, I don't do gymnastics. This is the first time. And he went over and had this pivotal conversation with my parents, which at the time we had no clue that it was going to, be this important conversation that ends up being the entire reason why I get started in the sport of gymnastics and win 3 Olympic medals 11 years later versus never getting in the sport at all, because that wasn't my parents' plan at the time. And, they were kind of like, yeah, okay, sure. She's got some talent, whatever. But he told them like, y'all should put her in this sport. I see something, she's got some talent and potential, like let her try it out. And then after a few months of, I think, trying things on my own in the house, like off of the picnic table outside into the yard, acting like it was a beam, off the couch, and my mom being terrified I was going to break my neck, she was finally like, okay, okay, we will put you in. And that's kind of how it got started. And then really ramped up very quickly from that point on. It was, starting that once a week training. And then it was, all right, let's get her in 3 days a week. All right, let's get her in every single day. All right, now we're in 2 days. Now we're in basically all day. And then Saturday training to where it was like 40 hours a week at a pretty young age. But it was something that I immediately just had this passion and spark for from that moment of stepping foot in the gym. And it quickly became all I wanted to do. It became where I wanted to be all of the time. And I ate, breathed, slept gymnastics.
Really. And so this is at the age of 6 years old, right?
Yes.
And so you're totally consumed. You're in this sport. What's it like to have somebody look at you when you're 6 and say, "She's got something"? Do you still keep in touch with that person to this day?
I do actually. We kind of through Facebook, sometimes text messages and stuff. And he was in the sport for a long time, owned a gym, and was a coach for a long, long time. And obviously, this was in Louisiana, where I'm from, in Baton Rouge, and so obviously, all of those people cheered me on throughout my career, and just were some of my biggest fans and cheerleaders. So to this day, yeah, we still talk, we still keep in touch, and it's really cool to just uh, know where it all started, and then what ended up happening and transpiring, all because of that little conversation that led to this spark to put me in the sport. And then what happened? It's
Wow.
crazy.
So you're in Louisiana. You're trying something out that you just have a passion for. What's the next step? Where does it go from here?
Well, I think it was starting as fun, just starting out as this fun sport, and quickly became, turned into this passion. And how can I get into the gym more? How can I learn more? How can I get better? And then the competitive side of things started coming into play, where you're getting better, you're climbing in those levels, and as a gymnast, and you're like, okay, like I'm getting on the podium, or I'm getting close to the podium, and you're starting to see that competition that you're competing with every time, and you're wanting to get better and better. You're wanting to end up on the podium at some point, and be the best. And so you start realizing that the hard work that's gonna come to be able to make it onto those podiums and compete with those girls is going to be a lot, but something that I loved doing. It was the challenge of it all. It was the hard work that was put into it, and the determination to, uh, when I would see a great gymnast, it was this like fire inside of me that wanted to do more in the gym, and that wanted to push myself and wanted to be just as good as those other girls that I would look up to.
So there's there's obviously this intense just your parents, the intensity of your training and everything. Do you have brothers and sisters at this point in time?
I have a younger sister, yeah. She's
So
2 years younger than me.
so how did that land on her? Everybody's going to Carly's stuff, and she's coming along for the ride. Just anything about that?
Yeah, you know what? My sister Jordan, she tried gymnastics for a little time,
Wasn't her jam, huh?
and it wasn't her jam, wasn't her thing, and so she kinda tried everything, for a season, and she would test it out, and that just kind of we were wired differently in that way, I guess, of, she saw the life I was living, and she was like, "I don't think that's for me." I don't think I wanna be that serious into a sport. But she would do something for a season with friends, and it'd be probably more about the social aspect and just doing something fun. But yeah, our lives were very different growing up because of that, and I was in the gym all of the time, and a lot, revolved around my training and the competitions, and she did her thing too. But it was also one of those things that she was one of my biggest cheerleaders throughout the whole time and always cheered me on. And no matter that she didn't want that life or she didn't want to do that sport, like she cheered me on the whole way through.
That's special. That's special. Aaron, so again, things are ramping up. You're still in Louisiana. I'm trying to remember, but when I saw you speak, I remember you did have a picture of the podium, but I think there was a
Yeah.
story behind it. Can
Yeah.
you tell me more about that?
Yeah. One of those ways that I always talk about how we can go from our best to better is the way we look at those podium steps in our life. And when I was 10 years old, I was level 10 in the sport of gymnastics, which is really good. It's the second highest level you can be at 10 years old. And as I said before, my journey and career in gymnastics went pretty quickly. It escalated very quickly. Went from, 1 day a week to level 10, going 40 hours a week within about 10 years, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, in that time, being 10 years old, level 10, I was going to this first level 10 nationals. And at that time, I was used to competing against the girls in Louisiana in my area and where I was from. And yes, I was getting on top those podiums in that environment, kind of in that arena. But I was thinking and anticipating being on top the podium at nationals. But, at that point, you're like, oh, I'm not competing against just the gymnast from Louisiana and in my area. I'm competing against the best across the US at this point. And so, but surely I thought I was going to end up on top that podium and receiving medals and trophies since that's what I was used to. But I ended up at the end of it all standing on the 76th place podium, which there's no podium for 76th place, we know. So
76th.
76th place all around.
Now, I'm just curious, out of how many, do you
Gosh,
think? Just if you guessed.
Probably hundreds.
Okay,
I've gone back and asked my parents.
You're on that 40th or 50th percentile, and you're used to being number 1 percentile. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you kind of realize, oh, okay, well, that didn't go as planned. And, at that time, going back home, road tripping with your family in the car. And, normally I'd have these medals and trophies that I'd be like having in my lap and admiring on my way home. And so that harsh reality hits that, oh, there's a lot of good gymnasts out there. And there's a lot of work and training that needs to be done and put in if I want to improve and if I want to get anywhere near as good as those other girls, if I want to get up to that podium, next year at that next nationals. So it was a big reality check moment for me at that point. And I think in those times, you can either let that failure kind of define you and make you kind of sit back and think there's so far to go. There's so much that needs to still be done to get anywhere near that you can just kind of quit, right? Or just kind of say, all right, like I've probably reached my peak, or you can let it fuel you. And it definitely fueled me to want to get better, to go back in the gym and to work extremely hard and put in what needed to be done to go out there and get on the podium for those next ones.
So you're having a defining moment. At what age?
10.
Doesn't that just sound crazy? You're having a defining moment at 10?
It does. I mean, it is weird because talking about these things to, corporations and what I do for my profession, talking about teaching these lessons that were learned at such a young age. And in our sport, we learn all of these valuable lessons. And I'm so grateful to gymnastics for all of those lessons that were taught. And so I was so young, but you apply every single one of them to what you do in your everyday life. And it all tracks and it all follows to whatever you do. I've learned throughout the years. And so being able to learn those kinds of hard lessons, to be able to push on no matter what you're trying in life, no matter what you're going after, like knowing you're going to have these failures, but you can push through it, and knowing you're going to have setbacks, knowing you might not always be the best in the room, but knowing how to get through that, knowing how to use those moments for growth instead of, a moment of like feeling sorry for yourself, I guess, or, getting disappointed or feeling like, okay, maybe I'm never going to amount to this, using it to just drive you to do better. But yeah, learning that at such a young age is pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kinda wondering, and you can answer this in a second, whether, how much your parents played into this, but, a lot of my clients, I take them through Carol Dweck's work on mindset, on growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And when I met you and we were at the airport, some people say, yeah, I told people, yeah, I had the opportunity to meet with Carly Patterson. It was nice. What was she like? And I said, the thing that amazed me about it was you had just come off, you did a great job, obviously, as a speaker, and yet you were asking questions. What can I do to be better? What can I do to, you just had this growth mindset. And that's what Carol Dweck's book is about is,
Yeah.
the fixed mindset is, I've got this nailed and I really don't feel like anybody can offer anything up. And then this growth mindset is, tell me more. Tell me
Yeah.
more. I really want to learn. Do you,
It's never
you,
good enough.
you somehow have that though, or did you realize you have it? And was that instilled with your parents as well?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that was instilled as a gymnast, just another lesson of we're always trying to reach perfection, but you're never going to get there.
Mhm.
Like it's like one of those it's an ongoing journey. It's a marathon and you're never going to actually reach that because there is always ways we can improve. And as a gymnast, you never did anything perfect. Even if you did it like perfect, like as good as it could get, it's never going to be perfect. To get that perfect 10 is very unattainable. You're always striving for it, right? But it's not normally possible. And so you're trying to always just get as close as you can to that perfection. And so I think knowing that, just knowing we can always improve in so many different areas, learning that lesson as a gymnast, like there's always more you can be doing to get better. You never reach the top of it because
Yeah.
we can always improve. We can always get better. There's always like a new podium step that you're trying to get to. You're always setting these next bars for yourself, which I think is a healthy thing to do. You're always striving to be a better version of yourself. And I think that's what I try and do in my everyday life. And that lesson that I've taken and realized that as a wife, as a mother, as a speaker, as all of these different things in these different areas, you're never at the end or the top. You're just always evolving, always becoming a better version, always learning, always growing. And I think that's just kind of what I've realized in life, but knew that as a gymnast for sure, and have taken that lesson on with everything I do today.
So amazing. So you're 10 years old, you're having this life-defining moment of, I'm 76th out of a couple hundred or whatever. And you come back and you rededicate yourself and you say, I'm going to get better. I'm going to be the best. Where does it go from here?
Well, I think that very next nationals, I got 18th. So
Okay, we're
I'm
moving up. We're
I
moving up.
improved. I improved, but still didn't get to the podium yet, right? And so at that point, my dad's job had this opportunity to transfer our family from uh, Louisiana to Houston. And at first, we were all excited. We're thinking it's going to be this fun new family adventure, all these new things. But when we get to Houston, it's just not as awesome as we were hoping. And things just weren't really clicking in the new gym and with the new coaches and kind of their style. It was very different. You leave where you're from, your family, your friends, your gym that you spend all day every day in, right? You leave that environment that you're so used to and so comfortable in to, have everything kind of flipped upside down. And although it was exciting at first, you quickly realize like, oh, this isn't going to be as easy as I
Mhm.
thought. Like everything is brand new and you're trying to adjust. And so for the first time in my career, these doubts start coming in about whether or not to keep doing gymnastics. And so I let my parents know, and, they're trying to make sure I've really thought it through. And, Carly, you've put a lot of hours and a lot of years and a lot of work into this. Are you sure that this is what you want? Like, have you really thought it through? And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, this is absolutely what I want to do. I'm done. Like, I can't go anymore. And so we go tell the coaches and I quit. But by the end of that first week and only week, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to the gym.
I got it out of my system.
Yeah, exactly. It was like I was bored, but what that week showed me, even though it was a tough time and that year that we were there was a tough time, we said, okay, maybe quitting is not the right decision right now. Let's keep training. We'll stay in the gym because, you can't bear to not be in the gym and not be flipping around, obviously. And we were like, hopefully things will turn around and get better. And luckily a year they did. My dad had this opportunity to get transferred again for his job. And that's how we ended up in Dallas and started in another gym there and got moved and settled and things were going well. Loved the new gym. Things were really clicking with the coaches and the gym, the teammates and everything. And it kind of just all felt like things were falling back into place at that point and clicking again. And that spark was really back for gymnastics. And that fire was really burning inside to just give it my all and kind of recommit mentally, physically, all of those things. Right. But what was crazy about that time is that sometimes a week can just be that magical period where you can gain some real mental clarity on something. And that's exactly what it did for me. It gave taking that week off from gymnastics gave this little reset and recharge that I needed mentally and physically. It gave this new perspective that was needed as well. And it showed what life was going to look like without gymnastics in it. And I realized I didn't like that. And so sometimes taking those little pauses where we need to in life can be so powerful. I've learned to just give ourselves the reset we need sometimes, or to gain the perspective that we might need on something to then go back at it, refocused with a renewed freshness and sense of why we're doing it.
Wow, that's powerful. So I have to keep reminding myself, you're a sixth grader around this time, correct? Well, you're somewhere in there. You know what, you're in junior high somewhere. You're and very
Yeah,
young, and you have this emotional maturity and this ability to say, "I'm done. Not the right decision. I'm back in." And when you go back in, you just appear to me to be somebody that just doesn't dip their toe back in the water. You probably found some renewal in that week off that even fueled you even more, correct?
absolutely. And I mean, I think what it taught me too is that it's not going to be easy, and that's okay. But the drive and the passion and the will to continue through it that I realized was inside of me, no matter whether things were clicking perfectly in the gym or, with the coaches or whatever the environment was, my passion and drive, I realized, and love for the sport was bigger than the difficulty of that move and of that environment, which is once again another one of those life lessons, because there are going to be so many times in our life where we're uncomfortable, where things aren't clicking, where things aren't maybe going the way we had envisioned or the way we would like, or maybe it's not even happening as quickly as we would like, and that change and that, that comfortableness. And so that's okay. Like, I learned that we're going to have those moments in life, and that's how we push through. That's how we grow. That's how we level up mentally, physically, and that's how we're able to get through those times. Because it wasn't necessarily like the funnest year of doing gymnastics, and it was tough to push through, even though I loved what I was doing. And so there are going to just be those moments in our life that we're going to have to push through, even when it's uncomfortable, or even when we're not having the most fun. And it's just going to be about putting in the work, continuing to not give up, continuing to just push through those tough, difficult moments in our life.
Yeah. So, I'm still kind of fixated on the fact that because when you performed in the Olympics, you were what age?
16.
16. So you're only 4 years away
Yeah.
from being on the biggest stage in the world. Now, what does a norm look like? I know what a norm looked like for me as a 12-year-old. What was the norm like for you during this period? What was norm?
Just like a normal day.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously were practicing, traveling, competing. You were doing things that most 12-year-olds obviously are not doing.
Yeah, I would, get up about 6 in the morning and, get dressed, eat breakfast, get ready to go to the gym. And we would train from about 8 to 12 in the mornings. And then I would go to school for about 2.5, 3 hours. And then we'd go back to the gym and train again for another from like 4 to 7, 7:30. So what is that? About 6.5 hours, about every day, 7 hours, somewhere around there,
Oh my goodness.
every single day. And then on Saturdays would be like an 8 to 12 or 8 to 1 practice. So my day just looked like being in the gym, flipping around nonstop, and then fitting school in there in the middle of the day, kind of on our break.
But you
And
loved it. You
that's
wouldn't have done it. It didn't sound like you'd have done it any other way.
no, I mean, that's where I wanted to be. And I think that's where even like my teammates too, like we all wanted to be there. Like we all loved what we were doing. And you cannot make a 12-year-old practice and be in the gym for 40 hours a week, right? Like that has to come from you and your own personal drive, because no parent or coach can make these kids be in the gym for 40 hours a week. That's just, you have to love it and you have to have that passion for it, and it has to come from you.
Yeah. And so, again, I'm a novice when it comes to this. So I'll ask some silly questions. But when you were speaking, when I heard you speak, and just even now, you're talking about teammates. This always seemed a little bit like an individually type of a sport to me because I mean, you're the one doing the beam, you're the one doing parallels, you're the one doing the floor exercise, but yet you always talk about team. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I had these amazing teammates, and although gymnastics is a really individualized sport, it also had that other aspect of the team as well. And so training those days every single day in the gym with, I think it was about 7 or so of us elite gymnasts that were all on the same track, all had the same mindset and these same goals to, be on the national team and get college scholarships and make an Olympic team. And so it was super inspiring and motivating to train with those girls every single day, and we pushed each other to do our best and to get better. And when we were struggling in the gym, that was super helpful. And I truly believe that it takes a tribe of people around you in order to be successful. Like, it's not just you. It took my coach, it took my family, it took my teammates, it took all of these things together to be able to achieve that goal for myself. And so, like I said, although gymnastics can be such an individualized sport, it really, there is a team of people behind you, kind of behind the scenes sometimes, that are helping lift you up and get you there as well. And so the team aspect of it for me was super important. And I know that's what helped push me through a lot of the tough days as well, having those girls on my side and by my side, and we were all working towards that same goal.
I, yeah, I can understand that because you're really at about a point where, I mean, your body's changing, Carly, and
Yeah.
injuries are going to start to creep in when, young females start to go through these growth spurts. Tell me a little bit about that. Because you're now a few years away from the world championships, which I think you have to do before you get to the Olympics. Tell me a little bit about some of the adversity, some of the things that went on there and how team played an aspect there as well.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories from my career. And it was the 2003 World Championships, which was 1 year before the Olympics. This is the second biggest competition to the Olympics. And I had been working my butt off. I was ready. I was prepared. And this was my chance to really go out on this world stage, shine, show people who Carly was. And all of a sudden, after, years and years of training, I was super blessed to not have really many injuries at all. And then all of a sudden, I start having this elbow pain, and it's getting worse and worse. And my coach is like, "We've got to go to the doctor. We've got to see what's going on." And the doctor tells us, it just kind of drops this bomb that your elbow's fractured. You need to take 6 weeks of rest, basically. And we were like, come again. We've got world championships in 6 weeks. And so we did not have that time to take off or to rest. And so we were like, we've got to come up with a different plan. And we kind of do enough to, I guess, make it work. But once we get to California where the Worlds was being held, our team faced every single bit of setback and adversity that you could imagine. And so as soon as we get there, one girl gets sick with the flu and she's in bed the rest of the time, never gets to compete. Another teammate in training one of the days tears her ACL. She's out. And then another teammate in training tears her Achilles. I say Achilles, ACL. One was Achilles, one was ACL. And then, so she's out. And then you have my elbow that is still fractured, still in pain. We're doing everything we possibly can, just icing and massage and stim. And my coach had this crazy Russian cream. And I just call it that because it was all in Russian. So I had no clue what it was, but we would put it on my elbow and it would like heat it up, like it would blood flow going. And so we would use that and that would kind of just like help get it warm and working.
And it was legal. It was legal, I assume.
I guess so. That's what we hoped. And so we were doing everything possible to just, get through, because you train all these years, and you finally get to one of the biggest competitions in your life. You don't want to give up your spot to compete. And so we had lost over half of our team, had to bring in all of our alternates, make up a new team. And this is all before the competitions had even started. And in that moment, we had really every reason and right to get down, get bummed about what was going on, that we had just lost our team. Like, we've lost our shot. We could get in that mindset easily. But luckily, that's not what we did. We came together as a team like never before, and we lifted each other up. We were there for each other. We pushed each other to do our very best. And when we went out on that competition floor that night for team competition, we left our heart and souls on the floor, not only for ourselves and for how hard we had been working in our own goals, but for the girls that went down and could not compete, and for our country, and to make our country proud. And we ended up walking away becoming the first ever U.S. women's team to win a team gold at a world championships, and made history in our sport, quite literally against all odds.
I get chills as I listen to it. And the part that really got me was you said, we lifted each other up. We, did this, this magical moment that just, what was that like? What was it specific? Was it just talking it out? Was it just encouraging each other? But it had to be more than that. What was it that just helped you guys kind of get into the zone?
I think we just knew that, we're not going to give up. Like, yes, these circumstances are terrible and this is really unfortunate, but we knew that we still had a good team. We knew that our alternates were waiting in the wings, ready to go exactly for this reason, for this situation, if it were to arise, right? And so we knew we could count on each other. And we were like, we're not giving up. And we're going to go out there and we're going to give it all we have. And we're going to see what happens. Like, there's still a chance. And I think we just decided to never give up hope. And I think, like I said, losing those other girls and going out there and kind of just, dedicating what we were doing to them and to our own goals made it all the more special, because we chose to not give up and not let our circumstances define us. And we decided to go out there and try to defy all odds. And we were able to make it happen, which made it all the more sweet. And it's one of the most memorable and special moments in my entire career, because of everything that we went through. When you go through adversity, when you go through injury, trials, setbacks, just constantly being knocked down, doesn't that make winning or getting to that end goal or that destination, whatever you were working towards, that much more special, that much more sweet? And that was kind of that feeling for us. I think we couldn't even believe. We could believe because we knew we were tough and we knew we were going to give it all we got. But at the same time, it was like, holy cow, we just did that. We made it happen still against all odds.
Yeah, because you didn't just make it happen. I mean, you guys won the gold medal as a team. You personally won the silver medal for the all around.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is an amazing story. And so maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit. What do you do personally to get in the zone, your zone? Because I assume your zone is different than some of your other teammates. Like what you do to prepare to tune everything else out and to do when it counts, the things you've been training to do. What are some of the things you do to prepare yourself?
I think it goes back to the training and just hours and hours and repetition on repetition and just being prepared for any situation and any scenario, being prepared in those pressure filled moments. And my coach did a really good job of making those moments happen in the gym, even though you didn't have the crowd or the judges judging you. We would kind of make it as pressure filled as we possibly could, and we would go up there and have to do our routines. And so we did that a lot. And doing these cold sets where you just have to go up and do it without a warm up, and so you're just prepared because you're going from these training gyms, and then you have a little bit of lag time before you actually get to go up and compete. So you have to be ready and you have to be preparing for these moments and what could happen so that you've done it before. You feel like you've done it before. And so he did a really good job, number one, of that, of just preparing us and being in those pressure filled situations to be able to go out there and mentally handle it, physically handle it. And I think also just constantly keeping those goals that I had for myself in mind and staying somehow grounded. I think trusting in all of that training, trusting that it was there. And I think sometimes we can get so into our heads when we're ready, and you can forget that, right? You can start to only focus on the things that could go wrong or what I might not do right, instead of just realizing like you're ready. Just go out there and do what you know how to do. Do what you do every single day in the training. That is what you train for these moments. And so I think just constantly telling myself that, knowing that I was prepared, kind of having that positive self-talk is really truly powerful, because our minds, as we already know, is super powerful in what we tell ourselves, what we believe about ourselves. And I believed I was ready. I believed I could do it. My coach believed in me. I knew that. My teammates believed in me. We all believed in each other. So I think having that trust in yourself, having that trust in your teammate, having that belief come from those sources as well, from my teammates, from my coach, that was huge.
Yeah.
Huge in
So,
helping just my mental of being able to know that I could go out there and do it. I could hit, they could count on me, I could count on myself. I was ready, I was prepared.
so this positive psychology plays a huge role. I'm hearing a lot of repetition. I'm hearing a lot of adversity to prepare. And then again, I think it's more of putting it with a lot of my clients. We try to find out your limiting beliefs and a lot of self-awareness so that you can use what's called the reticular activator system and move things to the conscious part of your brain. What do you want to remember? And what do you want to forget? And tuck it away back there so you never have to revisit it. But yeah, I'm hearing you using this reticular activator to put what you want to remember in the conscious or the prefrontal cortex, and then just going out and doing your thing. You just
Yeah,
did your thing. What I'm amazed
absolutely.
at is again, you took a silver medal in the all around, and yet by the time you made it to the Olympics, that's actually where you got a gold, right?
Yeah.
And and you didn't place in the beam, but yet in the Olympics, you took a silver in the beam. That's amazing. Tell me a little bit as we transition from the world to the Olympics. Who are some of the favored countries or some of the best in the world that probably were odds-on favorite to take the gold?
Yeah, there was Romania was really good at that time. They ended up taking gold in 2004 as a team. And then actually the girl who beat me on beam was Romanian as well. And then China was really good, and Russia was really good as well. So we had some major players, and I knew that in order to get on the podium and in order to medal and, win a gold medal, I was going to need to be at my very best and on my game and just in it and locked in because there was some stiff competition.
Yeah. And, one of the things I remember from your speech, which is very dynamic, was you had a clip of Bob Costas talking about the pressure that was on you specifically. I mean, if the team was going to medal, it came down to your performance in the floor exercise. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we a couple of us, myself included, had a few mess ups during the team competition. And so we all really had to kind of get it together and dial it in on some of those last routines. And luckily we were able to pull out that silver medal. But yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I think for the team competition, I felt the most pressure out of the whole time I was there and out of any other competition because you know that you're at the biggest competition of your life, but other people are really counting on you in that particular competition. And so I think for the other ones, I was kind of able to just relax and know that like everything was just on me. But for the team competition, I think we were all very aware that we were all counting on each other. And, it was about the team
Wow. So
and it was
just to
tough.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, what am I missing? I mean, I want to transition here into kind of life after, but what's the biggest takeaway from your experience up to this point right now, especially going from the world into the Olympics? What's your biggest? I mean, you just barely have your driver's license, if you even do at this point in time, which is amazing. But what is the biggest takeaway that you can give to our audience of just the experiences and what you're going through in life?
Just throughout the gymnastics portion of things, or what I
Yeah.
took with it for me today, some of
Well,
the biggest
can
lessons.
can be today, can be back then at that point in time. What are you
Yeah.
feeling as a 16-year-old? I mean, at this point in time in your life?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I was able to take away is being able to use our setbacks as setups in life. So whether, we fail or we don't do as well as we would like to, we can use those for these opportunities for growth. And I think that I learned so much more from all of my failures than I did from my wins.
Mm,
And I'd always take those failures back from competition to the gym and just hone in on them and learn from the loss or learn from the mistake and try to figure out how to switch it and change it and to not let it happen again, but also to not think about it for that next competition, right? But just use it as an area to get better and to gain strength, maybe where there wasn't that strength before. So just really looking at setbacks as these opportunities for setups and that our setbacks can just be these biggest opportunities for us to grow and to go to the next level. And I've learned that in life, no matter what we do, we're going to have these setbacks, whether they're small, whether they're major, but it's always on us how we handle the setbacks. It's always on us how we want to move through them, how we want to just grow and refine ourselves and get better through them. And it's always on us for our attitude and our example. And so that's one of the biggest lessons and takeaways for me in my everyday life now. And obviously at 16, winning the Olympics, having your ultimate goals and dreams achieved at that young age of 16 was pretty wild. And you're at that moment, I wasn't even thinking about what's next until a couple of years later, and all of that fame that you just had kind of starts dying down. And all of a sudden you're thinking, what's next? I've already achieved what I thought was going to be the biggest thing in my life, but I still have the rest of my life to live. Like, what is next? What's going to be my next passion and my next purpose? And what am I going to pursue in the rest of my life? And so at that point, just really starting going down these different paths of trying things. And, I still had 2 years of high school to finish at that point, getting home from the Olympics. So it was just kind of going back to normal life at first, but at the same time being recognized everywhere I went and, being this celebrity for a little bit and having all of these opportunities. And at the same time, trying to find myself as a teenager, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot of
It was a
pressure,
wild
right?
time.
Yeah. So, I mean, here you are, you're like 16, and you're even nominated for the ESPY Award for Best Olympic Performance. I mean, who in the world could beat what you just did? I don't know if you remember, but I just want to know who had a better performance than what
I
you
think
had
the
to do.
softball team won out
The
on
softball
on
team.
that SB. Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding. Uh,
Yeah.
well, okay, so that was kind of your pinnacle. You're kind of elevating. One part I know that you and I have talked about a little bit, and that has been your faith.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, was that something that you were given or you embodied early on in life, middle of life? I know it's always a journey, but tell me a little bit about your faith.
Yeah. I grew up in a really strong Christian home. We went to a non-denominational church. So that foundation of faith was always there, which I'm super grateful for my parents and raising us and instilling that in us. But I truly have realized over the years that it's something that you can impart on your kids and you can give to them, but ultimately at some point you are going to kind of come into to play with your own reckoning of what that means to you and kind of your own choosing, right? And so I kind of got away from my faith for a little while at some point. Just it was more on the back burner, I guess
Mhm.
I would say. And then always knew God was there, always had that relationship, but was not pursuing like a true fruitful relationship, I guess. And so one of the biggest moments for me in coming back to my faith and just God like really working in my life was through our infertility and miscarriage journey, where my husband and I are thinking we're ready to start a family. You're never thinking you're going to be this couple that is struggling with a miscarriage or struggling with infertility and you can't get pregnant and you're like, what's going on? And you're wondering why. And it was a really, really challenging, hard time, and, we were walking this road with our doctor telling us we had a less than 10% chance of conceiving on our own. So we start fertility treatment and doing these tests and trying to figure out what's going on, and after a little while and some different treatments, we get pregnant, and we go to have that first sonogram, and the tech tells us that the baby's not growing like it should. She can't detect a heartbeat and that we were going to miscarry and, lose that pregnancy. And so that was one of the most painful days of our life. But I also realized through those struggles and that time that it was not about me having control over this, that it was about just consistently trusting God through it and getting better through these challenges and setbacks that were kind of being thrown at us, right? And so that was where it was a rough time, and it didn't start with my faith at first. It was very much a lot of pity parties, a lot of why me's, a lot of just self loathing and tears and fears and what ifs, and just constantly trying to control that situation where you cannot control a situation like that. Is completely out of your control. And so I think finally when I got to the end of myself and my pride and my self-control in it all, that's where God met me in the ugliness and the messiness of where I was in that journey, and just met me with grace and love and just a newfound purpose and relationship and peace that just he had it. He was going to take care of it, and he was going to help us walk through it. And so I finally decided to just give up that control and give it back to God and say, look, I'm going to trust that you have a better plan, perfect timing, perfect purpose in all of this than I ever could. And when I surrendered that, it was just like a heavy weight lifted. It was just, I could trust in knowing that he was going to work the plan out no matter what the plan was going to be. And so that was really just where my faith took this big growth and leap, I think, in my own life as an adult, and really going back to it and pursuing God in a relationship with him. And it's like the more I know, the more I learn, the more I lean into him and his plan for my life, like the more I want that, the more I want whatever he desires for my life, and whatever his purpose and his plan is. I know that ultimately is going to be the best, and going to bring whatever is going to bring him glory, right, is going to be what I want for my life, for my family's life, and in everything I do to just honor him.
Wow. You're a gold medal winner in life, my friend. That's powerful, powerful story.
Thanks.
You came a long way from 76th place. What's your new team look like? What's the team look like? You got your husband and who else?
Yes, got 3 little ones. Graham is 7, Emmeline is 6, and Pearson is 4. So we definitely have our hands full, our hearts full, our schedules full. Yeah, life is so fun with them. God truly blessed us through the waiting and through the trials and through the struggles with these little blessings that I prayed so hard for and cried so many tears for. So to be living out that dream now and doing what I do now, ultimately I do, speaking, but like my main priority and my main mission in life is being a mom, being a wife, raising our kids, and just doing the best job that I can and stewarding those positions that I've been given well. So that's what my little team looks like now. And I've learned that the setbacks don't stop, the difficulties don't stop, the trials, like every day is hard. And I will tell you, winning an Olympic gold medal, yes, that was hard. Training 40 hours a week was hard, but nothing compares to being a parent and what that hard looks like every single day. I mean, it is mentally, physically, emotionally hard every single day. But I'm glad and I'm grateful that gymnastics prepared me for my days as a mom. And I'm going to play all the same lessons to my everyday.
Yeah, and what's crazy is they're still young. You've got more seasons to let evolve.
I'm seeing that too. We're just barely getting out of like that baby toddler season. And now you go to the new season, you think something's going to get easier. And no, it's just a different kind of hard. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah. If there's any advice I can give you, it's just that every season's the best. I always, when we raised our daughter, it was like, this is the perfect. No, I just wanted to stop. Like, this is the perfect. And then a year or two later, no, this is the perfect time. This, and it kept evolving all the way up to today, to where, she blessed us with 2 wonderful grandsons that are twins. And, and you're right. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It equals about 10, especially when they're boys.
Yes.
And, so just, we can kind of close it, but, any passions coming out of your 3 children as far as athletics or non-athletics, or anything that they have that same drive for something that you had?
It's funny how all of your kids are so different. I would say my oldest, he is super into sports. He loves all the sports. I have no clue what he's gonna, end up settling in on, or, having that true passion and talent for, but he loves doing everything right now. We're always having to dial it back, because I'm like, hey, there's 2 more of you that like we've got to put in sports too. We've got to have time for them as well. So, but he just has a passion for all sports and all things high energy, very high energy child. And then my daughter, she's super passionate. She's very focused and task and driven and oriented. And I definitely see some leadership skills in her. Like, she can just, like, all morning, she has been just commanding my little one around the house. And she's had him wrapped around her finger. Like, she's got some, some gift that she has been able to just keep him engaged and entertained. And I'm like, what is going on? But she's got really, really good leadership skills. And she's also super passionate just about art and drawing. Like she's very focused and very particular and precise. And then my littlest one, my 4-year-old, I don't know what he's into yet. He's hilarious. He's like his own little character in person, and he just loves tagging along. He's like that true third child where he just goes with the flow. We're getting him into sports, but so far I'm not sure that's his thing. So
Hey,
we'll
everybody
continue.
finds their own swim lane. Everybody finds their
Yeah,
own swim lane. So I tell you
exactly.
what, this has been so much fun. So you have a book, right?
I wrote a book a long time ago, but it's a kid's book.
It's a kid's
But
book.
yeah,
Is
that
it
was a long
something
time
that we
ago.
could find on Amazon, or is it just something that you've kind of penned a long time ago?
It's I don't know if you can find it on
Okay.
Amazon or not. You could try. It's called Carly Patterson Be Strong, but I don't
Carly
even know if it's on there.
Carly Patterson Be Strong. So to speak, because again, you're a wonderful speaker, how would people get in touch with you to be able to have you come and keynote and inspire and motivate?
Yeah, so carlyspeaks.com is my website, and then info@carlyspeaks.com is my email.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm going to
Easy
put
peasy.
those in the show notes.
Okay.
And, you're a wonderful human being. I just really enjoyed meeting you a few months ago. And again, you've been very, very nice and gracious with your time with me and showing up. Anything you want to leave the audience with today, my friend?
Oh, I think we covered most of it, Stan. Just, embrace those sparks in your life and always just keep improving and becoming the best version of yourself. Use those setbacks as your greatest opportunities for growth and setups. And and pursue a relationship with God because that helps too.
Pursue a relationship with God. That's a mic drop right there, my friend. I'll tell you what, thank you very much. And thanks everybody for joining me on episode number 8 and just allowing me to talk with Carly Patterson, such a gold medalist in life. And that's that's what it's all about. So hope you took a nugget or two from today's discussion and learn a little bit more about leadership. And again, if you want to reach out to me, StanGibsonSpeaks.com, and I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Thank you, everybody. May you all live a rich and intentional life and have a wonderful week. Thank you. And thank you, Carly.
Thanks, Dan.
Take care, everybody. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at StanGibsonSpeaks.com.